In this last unit, what we want to do is take a look at the ways that our own state system of government reflects what we've studied about the federal government, but also differs from the way that the federal government works. So we're going to look first at Indiana's executive branch. This is the governor's mansion. This is where the governor of the state of Indiana lives. Kind of a cool looking house, right? But Eric Holcomb, right, is our governor right now. And so that's where he's hanging out. And I don't know if that's his car or not, but it's just a picture I found on Google of the governor's mansion. This is the governor of the state of Indiana. His name is Eric Holcomb. He is here taking the oath of office. So the power of the executive branch in our government, state government, rests with a governor. Now, the interesting thing is, in the state of Indiana, when you look, it's pretty much widely accepted that our legislative branch, which we'll talk about in the next video, is the much more powerful branch of state government. But the governor of Indiana still has some unique things that he can do as well. So let's take a look at those and the people who work for him. The executive branch, just like in the federal government in Indiana, is going to enforce the laws. And so that's the job of these 4 elected officials who you will see on your ballots as you become voters and start to vote in state elections. You will see these offices that are there. Like I said, Eric Holcomb is our 51st governor. He was the lieutenant governor of our state until Mike Pence became the vice president of the United States. And then Governor Holcomb got a promotion, right, to being the governor of the state. Right now, he's had to, of course, deal with the fallout of the pandemic. Probably in the news a little bit more than what normally the governor is, just because he's been doing weekly news conferences about that. He is also a Hanover grad, I believe. So kind of a little local connection there too. Apparently, it's a great way to be governor of Indiana is to graduate from Hanover. The powers of the governor. So the governor obviously signs laws that the General Assembly will pass. He can veto them and send them back to the General Assembly, but if the General Assembly passes them with a supermajority, then the governor doesn't even have to sign them. They just become law. So the General Assembly in Indiana can actually pass laws on their own. He appoints justices to the Supreme Court of the state of Indiana. Those justices get initially 2-year terms when he appoints them, and then they are renewed for 10-year terms after that. He can issue executive orders. Probably the most controversial use of that lately has been the mask mandate that he put out in response to the pandemic. And so there are people, obviously, on both sides of that issue that feel very strongly as to whether the governor had the power to do that. The interesting thing is the governor's, obviously, the governor 365 days a year. Our state legislature meets usually from January either to March or April, depending on what year it is. And so he's there just a lot longer. And so he can call special sessions of the legislature into being. But for the most part, the legislature is only there the first part of the year, so he's had to deal with a lot of this stuff after that legislative session was up. He's Commander-in-Chief of the Indiana National Guard, and he can issue pardons and reprieves for state law violations. The Attorney General of the state is our top lawyer. It is going to be this guy, Todd Rokita. He was just elected. He's not actually the Attorney General yet, but he will be in January, and I didn't want to have to do this again. So went ahead and skipped ahead. So there's another guy that this guy beat in the Republican primary that is the Attorney General of the state of Indiana. I'm not real sure why you would ever know who the Attorney General of the state of Indiana is, though. So I just thought you might like to know. He's our lead attorney and the chief legal officer. And so anything that's got to do with kind of enforcing the laws of the state of Indiana is going to run through the Attorney General. Again, this mirrors what's going on in our federal government, obviously with the Attorney General who works for the president to oversee the same way in federal laws. But Attorney General is appointed by the president but they are elected in the state of Indiana. In our neighboring state of Kentucky, a lot of times the governor and the attorney general are of two different parties, and so there's always some drama that goes on that way. But both our governor and our attorney general in this next 4 years will be Republicans. The lieutenant governor is Suzanne Crouch. The lieutenant governor has got some different powers. Obviously, she's kind of like the vice president, so if something were to happen to the governor, he retires, leaves office, she would take his place. This one is another one that you see her every once in a while as it refers to some of these things that she's leading, but a lot of times the lieutenant governor is given just some passion projects in places where they're good and asked to help the governor lead the state of Indiana. The treasurer of our state is Kelly Mitchell. Kelly Mitchell may be somebody that's a little more responsible, or somebody you'd be a little more likely to know later if you have a state pension. If you're going to work for the government, teachers have a state pension that's there. That's part of what the treasurer of the state does, is just controlling the money and making sure that those things are taken care of. Got a little political cartoon for you here. It says, "Thank you, Governor. We'll take it from here." The legislature, and it looks like they are shredding the governor's budget and getting ready to do on their own what they want to do. Like I said, usually in Indiana, we think of our legislature as being a little more powerful than the governor of our state, and we'll see that when we do the next video with the General Assembly.